What's up, people? This is your boy Gerald. It is Sunday, 9/11, 2022. How is everybody doing? I am sitting in my garage right now. Um, you hear that? That's me. Um, Sipping on my brew. I had to take my bracket off my phone because I want to make sure that, number one, it doesn't fall. Number two, is everything is done from a pure place. Because I strive to try to be in a place of transparency. What you see is what you get. And I also know that everybody has their own interpretation of their journey, the road that will be the tapestry that makes your life. So, let me be proactive. This video is protected by Section 107 of the Fair Use Act. All media heard or seen not owned by myself, Gerald Davis, is being used by critique and educational purposes only. Also, proprietorship and entitlement is for those said entitled to that. Once again, this video is protected by the Section 107 of the Fair Use Act. All media that is not owned by myself, Gerald Davis, is used by educational and critique purposes only. All beneficiaries of said content have full right and entitlement. Now, with that being said, so you're going to hear aircraft flying over because to come to the island, there's only one way. And so you're going to hear it. And also, I've been more or less contemplating when I was going to speak on this video, make a video to speak on some stuff. Because I got to tell you, family, you got a lot of diverted energy being put out as a society. I mean, I ain't got to tell you. Entertainment can be found on low energy. Energy that does not represent our best self. And a lot of times, it is demonstrated without accountability. But with that being said, how does that reflect or represent your individual life? Because you should not be spending 1 minute in a reality that does not enhance, display your true self, the best you. Because everything is spiritual. So with that being said, you have to have a certain mindset to protect it, to have a certain understanding, to communicate what you're trying to express, may it be verbally or non-verbally. Who am I talking to? So, a couple weeks back, I had, and I'm so grateful, family, someone reached out and they said, hey, would you please do a video about relationships? Which, theoretically, All my archives is about reflections of that. But I don't expect everybody to understand in the beginning, because to do that, that means you must be at a placement in your life to reflect. And in that placement, you must objectively be able to accept criticism. What do you mean by that, Gerald? I don't have the energy to deal with someone else's opinion. I'm not asking of that. What I'm saying is having the foresight to be able to learn from others' experiences. Because keep in mind, there was someone that looked like you or did not look like you that went through something so that you didn't have to. Who am I talking to? I'm a firm believer in the power of synchronicity. I'm a firm believer in the example of discernment. But to be able to tap into your discernment, you must first be able to understand who are you? Why do you feel the way you do? Why are you seeing the examples played out in your life when they do? And when they do, being able to gain knowledge of self. Who am I talking to? It doesn't matter what your upbringing was in regards to religious dogma. Because with religious dogma, it's still interpretation. Someone conveyed an example, a story, but ultimately there was a gem that you could pull from to protect you from the trajectory of your end goal, your life. Who am I talking to? So I asked the question on my last video, when it comes to happiness, what does it look like? Because, see, that is not an objective question. That requires transparency. But see, we live in a world in 2022 where the things that you need, you got to damn near pull teeth. You damn near have to make a proverbial deal with the environment. They may have the environment instead of willfully giving you access. Isn't the end goal? The end goal should be a fruitful life, whatever that may be. But look at where we are now. And I feel sorry to my millennials. I do. Because you're the generation that is going to take what was shown and use that as the template to build the foundation of generations to come. Who am I talking to? You know, I am what you would call Generation X. And the one thing you would always hear when someone had a platform, may it be through advertisement, may it be through various medias, they always said the importance of keeping it real. Who am I talking to? But if that was the case, why is it such a fight? Why is it so hard to obtain the things that you need? Why? Because there are those who know what you need that will not give you that. Why? Because they're benefiting off of what you lack. So if you're pissed off right now, you should. Rightfully so. Because you're being cheated. You're being deceived. You're being misled only for the gains of those who are willfully aware and are playing a game with your life. Now, you can turn that around if you do a couple things. Do you want to do a couple things? If you want to do a couple things to better your life, give me a thumbs up. Now, for those they don't want to put the work in. They expect that they're here because they can breathe. They're entitled to this. And I'm here to tell you, the longer you keep that mindset, the longer your delay will come. I'm going to tell you what's so amazing. Does it strike you the coincidence or the commonality of these three things? Number one, a snowflake, a diamond, your smile. They all have commonalities. Number one, no one can replicate an original. And as long as you know that, there will be those that will attempt that until you realize the value of each. Who am I talking to? What if I told you that the moment you took your first breath, you were made perfect? What if I told you everything that you consume, maybe intellectually or physically, is what distracts the ultimate progression of your lifeline? So, with that being said, look at it from this parable. If I knew that you were already perfect from the beginning, but you was unaware of your worth, wouldn't it benefit me to tell you or give you an alternative than for you to look in the reflection that looks back? Why do you think, hence the term girl next door was created? Oh, wait. How about the term corn fed? How about the term natural? I'm waiting. You know why? Because then those examples show that those were originals. Does it not surprise you that those who have made the decision through low vibration, 9 times out of 10, did not see what they possess, did not understand the uniqueness that was required to have your bloodline. That is why when you look at the mainstream, everything looks the same. Everything is watered down. But what is not watered down is the psychosis and the discord that comes with it. Why? Because it's not natural. Because anything of natural will have its own flow. There won't be no anarchy. There won't be any uh, uh, disconnect. Why? Because it knows not to, but to do one thing, but to flow. So, in the meanwhile, while you're looking at them for inspiration, the one thing that you have yet to do was to go within to see what sets you apart from everyone else. Who am I talking to? Society has convinced you that as long as you fit a certain cookie cutter image, you're accepted. Instead of, why don't I embrace the things that I think are my flaws? Because the things that are typically my flaws are my highest accents. Who am I talking to? Do you realize, family, there's going to come a time, everybody that decided to invest in their insecurity to just fit in are going to feel a certain kind of way when they realize that was nothing but a ploy to get you to conform. They told you forever, no, you don't want to have curly hair, but your hair comes in 4 different levels. Why? Because of its strength, its uniqueness. The essence was from your foundation of your genetic DNA. Hello? So what happens? You play the game because you think you're doing what you need to do, but anything that is not of you is exposed. Anything that is not able to grow falls. That's why you have so many people today going bald before their time. Why? Because that is not of you. So, I want you to know this. Every time you have the ability to take in this sacred air, to cognitively make a decision, should you go left, should you go right, should I stand still or should I go forward? There's a reason for it. Why? Because you are the creator of that mosaic masterpiece called your life. Who am I talking to? Who am I talking to? So the question asked to me was this, and I'm trying so hard not to speak on this because everything intertwines in itself. Everything. Hold that thought. All right. So, with that being said, we've allowed ourselves for the last 10, 15 years for the superficial to have an impact on the individual. And I get it because we tend to romanticize our day to day And then when it comes to things that we would call affairs of the heart, the things that really matter, you will never get support from that. Why? Because the people that know the true deal about that, they can't afford that. They can't afford that you better yourself. They can't afford that you decide to invest in yourself. They can't afford you to free think, even though they tried to convince you to use the term woke. Most people that are woke are spiritual people, family. And those people that are spiritually in tune, they know that there's certain words and certain things that you will not do. Why? Because it goes against and desecrates the Most High's ultimate will for your purpose. I used to always say in my videos, if you want to know a reflection of your friendship, ask them what their purpose is. The people that know will tell you. The people that don't will make excuses and give you distractive means. Why? Because you're getting too close to validate yourself. And they can't afford that, because some people are making money off of your Discord. Who am I talking to? Now, there's so much I want to reveal to you, but out of what the Most High has placed on my spirit, I can't transgress. I just can't. I won't. Because I know definitively when I am called and my last breath is done, the Most High will look down at my legacy and say, you have done well. You have earned the right to be amongst those who have. That's the end goal. And I'll prove this to you too. May 8th of 2022, Kevin Samuels passed away. We are in September. If what this man tried to illustrate had no validity, why are you still talking about him? Why are you still using his talking points, even though you try to use other words and claim it as your own? Why are you so agitated about someone you did not have personal access to? He was a human being just like you. So why do you care what someone else's does or do if it's not applicable? Who am I talking to? I'll tell you why. Because there were a great percentage of folks that you see on social media that will emulate, imitate, but will not do the work. And they saw an opportunity because of his transition for financial gain. What? Who? What? Yeah. But guess what? For those people, you're going to reap what you sow. You do know that, right? You don't think that emulating something that was already, it's no different than taking someone's term paper and scratching the name out and passing it off as yourself. You're going to reap what you sow. And there's going to be a bunch of them. Doesn't matter how much you try to uh, what was the term? Putting lipstick on a pig. Mm, yeah. When you willfully transgress over someone else, whatever you gain for, you're gonna pay for. Who am I talking to? So let's caveat that to this. And I'm not going to do you guys a disservice because when I finally have my stuff in place, I'm going to talk about that on my live feeds and I'm going to talk about this on my podcast. But mind you, I've been talking about this since 2011, October 2011. That's why the context is there. That's why the catalog is there. But see, I come from a place where it's not about calling out the deceiver because you can't fake the original. But like we live in a world where they say imagery, imitation is flattery. That's all that's going on social media too until you ask them the question. And then if it's not of themselves, they can't answer it. That's why a lot of people today get mad. They get pissed off. Prime example. One of the hot button words or topics talking about in this season of 2022 is those who want to travel outside of their environment with good intent. They've got what they call them, passport bros is a label that they use. That's the hot narrative right now. But trust and believe. Let me let you know. That's been going on since the beginning of time. It's called migration. Also, from the female, the female representation, you may know that as no different than hypergamy. So guess what? There's still a willful choice for betterment. Now here's the kicker on that. If there's ill intent on that, you're gonna find more calamity because that's not what you were meant to do. Because at the end of the day, all actions are governed by spiritual essence. Did you hear me? It doesn't matter if you change your name. It doesn't matter if you change your physical features. It's all about the soul. So, can I just dive a little deeper? Because I really don't want to. Number one, real quick. Let me put this in reverse. If Kevin Samuel's content didn't have any merit, why is it you're still talking about him almost 5 months later? You're still using his descriptive imagery in your own content. Even to the point that you want to use the tactic of, hey, we'll just debate about it. But here's a question about that. Even if you look at it from a critical thinking point, if God's not in it, how can you actually critically think? Who am I talking to? Or are you regurgitating woes of actions past and you use as a trigger? Why do you think there's so many women today trying to use the argument of, well, I can't believe men are deciding to actually seek another option if they don't apply to you? Do you know these people? And if you don't know these people, why does it matter what another individual does? Because if they don't enhance your own individual life, why do you care what the next person's doing? That's no different than your neighbor deciding that they want to pull out their grill and you don't, and you mad because you smell the aroma of what comes from their choice. Why do you care? Why? But if it's from a situation where there's something underlining going on, you're going to feel a certain kind of way because that means there's unresolved decisions that were made and you feel vulnerable. Why do you care what someone else does? Why do you care what someone else say? Do they, because of what they say, does it have an impact on your personal safety? Does it have an impact on your personal development? Because at the end of the day, guess what? No matter what your gender is, you still, at the lowest level, have this beautiful thing called free will. Who am I talking to? We still more worry about the exterior than the things that is required to bring the best you as a representation. You know, I used to always say, if you've got calamity and drama in your life, it will always remain until you decide to identify it's in your life. But it requires transparency and vulnerability to change it. Did you hear me? If you got a rock in your shoe and you constantly wearing the shoe and don't make the decision to identify that there's pain, to take the shoe off, to pull out whatever the obstruction is, you're gonna get more of the same. So let's go here. Why is it in 2022 you have people that have the audacity to feel entitled to a happy life? How'd you invest in it? If you built your life off of illusions instead of empowerment, if there's no vulnerability, how can you attract change? If your environment only reveals setbacks and delusion, how do you expect it to change unless you actually acknowledge it exists? So let's go there, because I'm going to shut this down quick, because I know some of y'all like, Gerald, you always do an hour. You ain't seen nothing yet. Once I got the console together, I'm gonna have everything on point. Why? Because I love each and every one of you. But enough is enough. My thing is this: how can you expect to find happiness in someone else's path if there's no investment? How can you expect for someone to make you feel safe if indirectly there is no connection to see worth? Who am I talking to? See, that's living superficial. See, society said you gotta look like an anime figure. Let's call a spade a spade. This whole hourglass figure, you know where that came from? Jessica Rabbit. Yeah, remember the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And one of the main characters was Jessica Rabbit. Is that not found on social media today? Mm-hmm. And what was she? She was a Jezebel. She was about that life. She was in the streets. So she was relentless to the point she was emotionally numb, and she used what she felt was the only tool that she had for progression, and that was her physical prowess. So she was always looking over her shoulder. But you ain't got to do that now, because that's manifested in real life, in a town near you, sitting near you, in a state near you, worldwide. And anything that's done in the West is emulated globally. That is why now, just like an onion, there are many layers, but the essence or the core comes from what? Only one source: the melanated people. But if it's not real, how long do you think you expect that it will last? That's why you have some people now, so many women now, that won't admit the fact that they realize they made a choice and invested in something that will never produce the return known as peace of mind. That's why they bitter. That's why they angry. That's why they won't take accountability. Why? Because it requires vulnerability. But they're going to convince you to join the legions of the lost. Come on now. Who am I talking to? Even BBD, Bell Biv DeVoe, Robert Bell, Michael Bivins, I can't even think of others. Ronnie DeVoe tried to tell you through allegory, never trust a big butt and a smile. Why? Because there's more to you than your curves, your aesthetics. Because guess what? When it comes to your genetics, DNA is undefeated. That's why your kids look like your mother. That's why your family look like your grandmother. And like you are a reflection of them. It is your legacy of your bloodline. But you let society tell you that? They don't care. They don't want to care. So I'm going to turn the curve. There have been many people ask me, Gerald, what is required to attract a... Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. You hear him? Sit down. Go get on your bed. Because he think I'm mad. Just like Tyson would. That's his brother. Lay your butt down. Let me tell you something, Queen. You can't sleep your way to happiness. You can't false enhance yourself to get to that. Hypergamy is only a false image. Because guess what? We live in a world of those who have compared to those who don't. But those who have made a choice. They've invested, maybe good or bad, and they have to answer for said actions. You cannot cheat your way to a happy ever after. It will not work. That is why when you were born and God deemed you female, He gave you two blessed things. One, your womb. That is sacred ground. Two, the power of discernment. Women's intuition. That's why you know before you do. Why? Because spiritually it is a connection of you. That is why many people have also said this: don't sleep around, Queen. Don't. But society wants you to self sabotage your womb. Why? Why do you think soul ties exist? Because this is sacred ground. Every man that is not of spiritual connection to be with you, their spirit or essence lives within your womb. Ultimately, the side effect is you take on the traits of them. Don't believe me? Think about some of the behaviors you were doing when they were tantalizing you while the moment they had it. Before you found the mind, before you found the voice of reason within yourself, your discernment to say, you know what? I like spending time, but there's a price I got to pay. Every time I'm with him, I got to go in my purse. Every time I'm with him, I feel depleted. Every time I'm with him, I feel sick. I feel nauseous. Every time I'm with him, I feel not of myself. Why? Because that is nothing but a spiritual low vibration that has attached to your womb. You shouldn't be in your 30s talking about I need a hysterectomy. You shouldn't be in your 20s talking about I can't find the one. Number one, you're not supposed to find the one. You're supposed to prepare for one. Your discernment will protect you from those who should not have access to you. But society wants you to be the clown princess. I love you. And guess what? You were naturally given the crown. So why do you think there's so many women losing their hair? Saying, oh, I'm gonna hide this because I don't feel right. So you basically saying you feel insecure of your image. But guess what? Because we live in a consumer-based society and people that don't look like you, that produce a pelt, they know that too. As long as you don't see your worth, they're going to make money off your insecurity. That is why now, because I know somebody's going to say I'm hating. Let me tell you something. You look at the fashion industry. You look at the fashion that's being offered for your enhancement. Tell me that doesn't look like the harlot. You pull up any imagery of a street near you where the ladies in the night work, and look at what they wear. Only difference is in the daytime now. To the point that they've convinced you they want you to illustrate the size of your birth canal. You might as well be nude. But on an economic stance, by doing that, you basically saying my worth means so less. I'm going to bear everything because I don't want you to see what's found in my mind. So guess what? It's a fool's paradise nowadays. You ain't out the woods, King. You're not. Because some of y'all walking around genetically blessed, physically enhanced, endowed more than the average. First of all, if you're endowed, let me tell you something. You know there's a responsibility to come with that too. But most people that are endowed, they don't speak on that because they don't tell you of the frustrations of being endowed, the things you have to do. I'll leave that there. That's why you can't buy your self-respect. That's why you can't buy an economic classism. Because you got people think, well, as long as I got money to fold, that will enhance, that'll open doors. No, no, it won't. And it only benefits those that know that they got a sucker. Oh, okay, yeah, he got a couple. He got these zeros. I'm gonna take his money because I know he doesn't have a way to produce more. No different than someone that's a farmer. Whatever your seed looks like is what you harvest. You reap what you sow. So society says, Queen, go ahead and screw everybody you can. Have your field day. But guess what? The Most High, you're supposed to be virtuous. You're supposed to be a Psalms 31 woman. But as long as you don't know who you are, you will not understand not only where you're headed, but how to protect yourself for those who trying to pray against you. But guess what? Keep listening to those naysayers and they say, don't talk about accountability. Don't talk about being, what's the other word they want to bash? Submissive. Let me tell you something. Number one, both words are blessed. And number two, you cannot submit to someone without consciously making a decision. And guess what happens in that? It's represented out of love, because if you choose to say, I'm submitting to that one, you got to first also be in a place mentally to be at peace. And if they don't see your worth to begin with, how are you going to submit? Because that's a tandem action. What you put out, they're going to protect. And what they give, you're going to receive. That is nothing but the circle of life, family. That is nothing but the infinity sign constantly flowing. It never breaks. Why? Because it's made of love. So what does your happiness look like? But if you don't have a relationship with God, you don't have a relationship with yourself. And if you don't have a relationship with yourself, how the hell you know where you're going? You can't speak your truth because you don't know your story to know who you are. That is why you have so many people illustrating that on social media, because these people will not do the work. These people will not be honest with themselves. And as long as they choose not to be honest with themselves, they might as well be going through life with a blindfold on. Well, if he's sleeping around, I should be able to sleep around. You're not supposed to sleep around, Queen. What's at stake is the children that are supposed to come through that sacred vessel called your womb. But if you're constantly giving yourself for Tom, Dick, and Harry, Steve is not going to be able to find you. Because if Steve is spiritual, a man find a good thing. He can't. So does it surprise you? You hear so many women saying there's no good men out there? You attract what you are. If you're desecrating yourself, you're not going to be rewarded with what you need. You're going to be attracting more of the same. You can fool them, but you can't fool the person in the mirror. And guess what happens? As long as you decide to keep that same energy, just make sure that you're by yourself. Because guess what? There are going to be more people that are going to go through life in their seasons, and they're going to end up being that older man that's angry at the world. They're going to have that older woman pissed at their day-to-day, and they project it out on The only thing that will reciprocate their presence, and that's a pet, which both don't have a voice. Your choice. And let me throw this out here too, and I will reiterate this later on. Why in 2022 you don't know what an orgasm feels like? I'll tell you why. Because you don't have a spiritual connection to yourself. Because the person that genuinely is supposed to give you those pleasures have also committed to you that they are going to be old with you. Those memories that are supposed to be shared together in your golden years, that every experience should be shared between you and them, not you and the masses. Don't worry about Larry, and that decision you made, you didn't know. When you honestly did not know, well, guess what? You were taken advantage of. They're going to reap what they sow too. But if you use that as a tactic for financial gain, you chose to be no more than walk in the shoes of the Jezebel, the harlot, Lilith. The ultimate feminist was Lilith, the first wife of Adam. And she served Satan. Why? Because she wanted to curse the world. And she died a painful death. Is it not playing out in a town near you, city near you, state near you, globally? People are ending up, lives cut short. And then depending on how heinous your actions and your pride and ego is, sometimes you're not going to pay that price. It'll be played out through your children. Stop fooling yourself. Stop thinking the only thing that's needed in this life is how perky your breast is, how long your penis is, how fat your ass is. If you don't have a relationship with God, you might as well be going through life with none of your senses, only to end up in a place that you should have never been to begin with. But I'll expand on that in more depth when it's time, real soon. I just went to a bird sanctuary yesterday in Waianae, which is part of, it's a community part of Oahu, and a lot of famous people are originally from Waianae. Right off the top, MMA, UFC, future Hall of Famer Max Holloway is from Waianae. Actor, you may know him as Aquaman, and amongst other projects that he's done, Jason Momoa, Waianae. Beautiful area. I went on this trek. It was like, it was like 8-mile trek, and I did it. I've got footage for that. I'm gonna put all that stuff out. But just know, family, I love each and every one of you. Let me tell you something. Stop shortchanging yourself because you think that you got to get along to be accepted. Your acceptance comes when you're able to have the conversation with the person in the mirror looking back, and you finally are able to tell that person how much you love them and how you're willing to protect their value. Even if that means removing yourself in an environment that you should have never been in. Because guess what? The people that have access to you, if they don't empower the best you, they're only trying to, unfortunately, take advantage of you physically, economically, and emotionally. You don't deserve that. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. And for that helps me discern mine. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. You can't buy your beauty. You cannot rub elbows with those who will never be able to see your worth. It matters when you decide to be vulnerable with yourself, to love yourself more, to invest in so much more. And that's your life. Peace.